Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video I'm going to talk to you about the Baker Act and the court issuing an ex parte order for assessment. So let's just step back a second. You remember that there are three ways to initiate a Baker Act on an involuntary basis, because there's two types of Baker Act, involuntary and voluntary. But there's three ways to initiate an involuntary detention, which starts the 72-hour clock ticking. Number one, the police initiate it. Number two, a qualified professional initiates a professional's certificate, like an emergency room doctor or a clinician of some sorts. Or number three, you go to the court and you petition the court for an order to have the person assessed. And if the court grants it, the court's going to send the police out to pick that person up, execute the court's order, and take them to a designated receiving facility. But what happens if you don't want, if after filing that petition and the court granting it and issuing an order, that you no longer want it to be enforced? And so the call that we had was where an adult daughter had gone to the court, petitioned the court for an emergency ex parte order. It was granted, and her mother was the respondent, because the mother was refusing to go to treatment. And as you know, as I've said in other videos, the Baker Act's not a treatment statute, but the daughter didn't know that because somebody had given her horrible advice. She went to the court, this thing was granted, and now there was an order out there, and the police were looking for the mother. And I don't think the daughter realized what she was really getting into, and called us and said, hey, can you stop this? Now look, I have no control over the police, and I do not and would not ever counsel somebody how to avoid a court order. Once there's an order in place, I mean, you got to comply with it. Does that mean that we can't stop the process? I mean, in theory, we could. And the way that that works is we'd have to ask the court to vacate the original order. And so that was the discussion we had. We'd have to file some type of motion, get back in front of the court and say, we don't want this to be in place anymore. Please call off the police. But I have to imagine, especially knowing the judge who issued this order, that she's going to want to have a hearing and know why the daughter went to court, made these allegations, which were sworn to under oath, with the penalty of perjury potentially hanging over her head if she lied in it. The court's going to want to know why this thing was filed. Like, what was the intention, and why do you want it changed? Why do you want to vacate this thing? And I think, frankly, trying to handle this yourself is an exercise in futility. I think the court's going to be really ticked about this. I think if you have a lawyer, I think that helps things. But I think the judge is going to want to have a hearing on this. And I think that if you are going to the courthouse and filing a sworn document asking the court to issue an order, and one to have have a relative picked up by the police, you better be darn sure that you do this truthfully and candidly, because trying to unring this bell can be difficult. You know how I've talked about in other videos how difficult it is to get out of a Baker Act. And so, yeah, I think in theory it can be vacated. I think the judge is going to be rightly ticked off about it and want to know why this happened. So if you've got a loved one that needs help, don't be so quick to run to the courthouse and file a petition under the Baker Act. It's not designed to treat anybody. It's only for emergency situations. And if it's an emergency, call 911 if it's that critical. I mean, that's what it's designed for. If you have time to go to the courthouse, fill out paperwork, sign it, submit it, and then wait for a court order, then I'm going to have to wonder if it's really that much of an emergency, or if the emergency has since passed. So be really careful when you do these things, and be careful who tells you that you should do that, and ask them, what their experience is in handling these. I've seen cases where the police told the client, an elderly gentleman, because his wife needed help with mental health issues, to go to the court and file one of these things, and he did, and it was granted, and then the police came, picked her up, and then the facility wouldn't let her go. And so we had to file to get her out. So I caution you when I hear people saying, go to the courthouse and file this thing. I think there are other alternatives that are far more less drastic, less draconian, and you don't have to get stuck in Florida's mental health system. Anyway, with that said, thanks for tuning in. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.